Well, it's August the 25th, and give you an update on the developments. There's on multiple fronts today. There's a developments in the Congress on the big spending bill, of course, and of course, like focuses has largely been directed more toward what's going in Afghanistan. And so we'll go ahead and hit both these topics. I'll first hit some of the Afghanistan issues. Basically, the last time I referred to this as that the evacuation snarls, and it really, it sort of has as far as Americans. I guess the latest estimates are that of 11,000 Americans that are estimated, we're not sure exactly, in Afghanistan at the beginning of this disaster, that about 4,000 has been evacuated, which leaves another 7,000. And the problem that we have on that apparently is, of course, the Taliban is lying, obviously, or the people that are speaking for them really aren't the ones in control, which both are possible. But I would tend to be more in favor of the idea that they're lying, since that's part of their ideology, that you can lie to your enemies. So I think that for instance, they one of the things that they said is that the people, Taliban, should not be brandishing guns. Of course, all Taliban in the streets are brandishing guns. So, and intimidating people. And apparently they're seizing people's various important paperwork, which probably is making the thing a lot slower to identify who is an American and who isn't, and so forth. Plus, we have large numbers of these SIV people, special immigrant visa people, that are basically people who had been working with us as translators or other employees, intelligence assets, etc., during our 40 years in the country. That those people, 20 years in the country, sorry about that, are trying to get out in order to escape probable execution. And so it looks like we've gotten more of those people out, although I guess a few people that were on the terrorist watch list did slip through the cracks, and I guess did get caught later. I'm not sure we've caught everybody. Just because we caught 5 doesn't mean we've caught them all, right? But basically, what we're seeing here is a major failure of planning. I mean, basically, we've allowed ourselves to be hemmed into the airport area, which is kind of a vulnerable area from the way it's situated, as I understand it. And we didn't venture out and seize positions further out. Meanwhile, apparently the Taliban's tightening the grip around the airport, which means that the August the 31st evacuation date is probably becoming iffy, given the fact that we're going to have to start evacuating troops sooner than that in order to get the troops out by the 31st. So. And I guess yesterday, although Biden is still sticking to his date, he is sort of weakening his language on it. Part of the reason may be that he doesn't want to stop the process that's going on now, what few are trickling through. Essentially, in other words, the Taliban would react whenever he announces that in some way that he's going to extend the time period. Then that would be a key for them to react. So as long as he pretends that he's sticking with it, that might slow their reaction. On the other hand, pretty soon it's going to become evident he's got to make a decision. And certain other countries, I heard that Poland has decided to pull out their effort. We're going to have not just Americans stranded, we're probably going to have NATO allied people stranded over there too in this fiasco. And it's going to be the other risk we run is that this situation goes into an open conflict. And given the fact that there's so much weaponry in the hands of the Taliban now, including artillery and everything else, we could actually be facing a complete catastrophe here if this thing goes hot. I mean, everybody's talking a lot of bravado, but I don't think they're looking at the strategic advantages that we've given up here. In principle, I mean, obviously the U.S. military is far stronger than the Taliban, but not much of the U.S. military is there, and we usually rely on a lot of, close air support and so forth, but we don't have any active air bases in country other than the airport, which is being used mainly to fly cargo planes in and out. And so the problem that we're going to be faced with here very shortly is what to do. A humiliating withdrawal or a very bloody battle where our normal advantages will be reduced, both because of superior weapons that have been provided to the Taliban due to the surrender of the Afghan army and just the location we put ourselves in. I mean, when we first got there in this recent deployment, we didn't move out quickly to establish a perimeter further up away from the airport, for instance, and maybe control more of the city ourselves. We let the Taliban come in and get total control of the city and tighten their grip. And now we're hemmed in a very tight situation, a little bit reminiscent of the idea on the Western with the army and a fort and the Indians running around in circles around the fort shooting arrows and stuff. I mean, this could turn into a really bad situation here. For instance, even mortar attacks could be sufficient to totally disrupt the air traffic, for instance, in and out. So we'll have to see what goes on here and what happened. But obviously, this has been the worst planned evacuation of any size that we've ever seen. I mean, this is just a complete debacle. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better. And now the Taliban is saying that they don't want all their skilled people to leave the country. On the other hand, many of them they're hunting down to kill. So, I mean, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I think that we were, as I said earlier on, this is crazy to trust them in any way. The whole effort has been based on the assumption you can negotiate with these vipers, and anybody with any sense would have said from the outset. I think that in a way you can kind of blame both the Trump and Biden administrations for this failure. I think it falls more on Biden in the fact that he never has really styled himself as the ultimate negotiator, and so he should have realized he should have ended this thing. It's hard to know what Trump would have done. My opinion is Trump would not have let it go on this far. I think when the conditions, because his negotiation was based on conditions, and I think that the conditions would have been so adequately violated long before we got to this stage that we never would have withdrawn the support for the Afghan army. But that's just my opinion. Nobody's going to ever know the truth now, right? I mean, so, and anyhow, but Biden has totally messed this up. I mean, if nothing else, we should have got ourselves in a better military position before we started withdrawing the support for the Afghan military. Okay, well, now on the other front I want to get to here is, and by the way, if you like these videos, remember to subscribe, give me a like because that helps out with the algorithm, and you can click the bell to get notified. The other development is, I guess the Democrats got into the 10 or so moderates, in quotes, unquote, who were basically pressing to get the original infrastructure bill passed before they took up the $3.5 trillion social spending bill. Apparently, what ended up happening is they negotiated a date. I think that they have a vote on the first the infrastructure bill by the 23rd of September, and so that it won't be held totally hostage to how things go on the $3.5 trillion social spending bill. However, on the other hand, they were unable to get the vote on the first bill now and get it out of the way, so they're still trying to hold the infrastructure bill hostage to the $3.5 trillion social spending bill. Of course, it wouldn't bother me if both of them went down the drain, because I think right now the spending is so far out of control that we need to defer these issues until later, in my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't mind the part of doing some work on roads and bridges and things of that sort, but if the cost of that is a budget busting bill with a lot of tax increases, I think we can defer this And after all, a lot of these things really should be state responsibilities anyhow. So I'm not, but nonetheless, there are a lot of people in both parties that want this infrastructure bill through because there's a lot of pork for them in that bill. So that's one of the reasons that I think that it's sort of being held hostage for the other bill. Meanwhile, we have at least some holdouts on the Senate side that don't want to go that far. I am not extremely optimistic on being able to cut the spending amount down. In a lot of ways, if we can manage to prevent the amnesty portion from getting put in there, and that's big, and if we can avoid losing the filibuster, then I think, vote against it. But I mean, I think they have the votes to pass it and squeak it through. It probably will not be good for the economy, obviously, and it won't be good for a lot of other, it creates a lot of things that I don't even know if are good ideas. I mean, is it really important to put all these very young children in this pre-K program? I mean, I wasn't in a pre-K program at that age, and I think I was quite happy to not be, in that sort of an environment until I was age of 6. I mean, so I'm not a big advocate of that. I think it's better just to let them play at that age and stuff. But a lot of it's obviously for working mothers to reduce their expenses, so it makes it more practical for them to go to work, I guess. And that's, at least they'll have more net household income if the government's paying the daycare bill rather than you having to pay it, right? So that's a lot of what's being in play here politically, obviously. I don't think it has anything to do with improving education, really. So at any rate, so that's still kind of semi on track. There's still a lot of details to be worked out, and I guess the hope is that the thing will snarl up and not get passed, but I don't have a lot of hope for blocking it, unfortunately. We'll have to see what actually comes out with, how many Republican amendments in the Senate actually pass. I mean, if one Democrat votes for a Republican amendment, by the way, and all Republicans vote for it, it gets in the bill, and then the House is stuck with either not passing it or living with it. So, but last time on the $1.7 trillion COVID relief bill, which was completely unnecessary, we found out in the final analysis all these amendments we won got taken out before the thing got passed. So it was all kind of a charade. And so I would be very cautious of that. I mean, if you have a Democrat a member of the House or Senate, in your district, I would write to them or give them a call and tell them you're opposed to all this wasteful spending, because we're going to have to live with this down the road. The inflation is growing up and so forth. So anyway, so that's where and also the latest polling number, I guess Rasmussen, as of yesterday, had Biden's approval rating down to 44%, and another poll came out that had it down as low as 41%. So his approval is falling fairly rapidly now in this Afghanistan situation, and we can only hope for the best that we get our people out of there and we don't suffer a lot of losses here. But if as I've mentioned before, the other thing that we have to realize is every American that needs evacuating here is not located in Kabul. Some of them are in out country, and can they get there with the Taliban running around all over the place? And one last interesting little tidbit about Afghanistan is that there's an area called, I think it's a Panjshir area. It's apparently highly mountainous terrain, and supposedly the vice president has retreated to this location and has defied the Taliban, and apparently these people are fairly armed up too, and I guess the Taliban's original push in there led to a lot of losses. At least that's what I'm seeing on one YouTube channel called The Deep Journal. So I find that kind of interesting that there's already kind of the beginnings of a minor civil war or resistance occurring. But at the moment, I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're highly outnumbered, and the Taliban are stronger than they've ever been before. So I wish them the best, but I have no idea how that's going to turn out. Anyhow, I'll close this for now. Again, you can follow me on the social media. The links are below, and that will and I'll close this for now until next time.